Welcome back to the George R. Brown Convention Center in Houston. I'm Mark Husenberger at the Texas High School Coaches Association Convention, and I'm joined on Texas Sports Productions by Todd Dodge, head coach of the Westlake Chaparrals. Well, Coach, if we can reminisce a little bit, I'd like to talk about your 2018 team, a region champion with one of the more impressive defenses that I have seen in the region. You took a lot of teams with dangerous weapons, Lake Travis. Brennan had a speedy receiver, although you couldn't tell it against Westlake. Brandeis has a fine quarterback, although you couldn't tell it against Westlake. Describe putting that unit together and watching them play such terrific football for the Chaparrals.
Well, first of all, it was good hiring. About 7 years ago, I hired Tony Salazar, who there's a lot of good defense coordinators in the state, but I wouldn't trade him for him. He does a tremendous job of teaching our kids, teaching our staff. But the other thing that I think has been so important over the last 3 years is that all of our returning players from the year before, the ones that had, 15 games starting or 14 game starts, all have come back and played much better the next year. Like Jake Ellinger, he was a first-team All-District type as a junior. Well, he was a second-team All-State caliber guy as a senior. You got David Neal, same thing, just had a fabulous junior year and had an even better senior year. So I say all that. Each year we're going to have somewhere on our defense where we're going to be really young, just like we will on our offense. But really the key to our success is those guys that have a lot of experience have played extremely well. That's not always the case when you're dealing with 16, 17-year-old kids. We really, from a standpoint, offenses talk about spread the wealth, get the ball in a lot of hands, get everybody touches. Well, our defense is one that we don't just rely on one or two guys to make all the tackles. We've got guys, from a standpoint at all three levels who've been really good in the defensive line. We were very experienced in the linebacker level last year, and then the secondary became probably the best we've had since we've been there.
One of the impressive things about the Westlake season is all the injuries that you had to overcome. It wasn't simply the fact that you fought through them to have success. For me, it was looking at a Westlake team, you couldn't really tell, well, that's the guy who hasn't had a lot of reps
right.
left and is learning his way along. Your units were so solid, both on offense and defense and special teams throughout the season, despite the forced turnover.
Yeah, they're about the ninth week of the season is where it really hit. We lost our 38 consecutive game starter at center. The next week we lost 2 weeks later we lost our number one running back, I guess the first series of the Brennan game. Later in that game, we lost his backup. And then, of course, the real big ones, the third week, we lost, the all-time winningest quarterback in Westlake history. And a lot of people would say, well, that's Drew Brees or that's Sam Ellinger. No, it's Taylor Anderson. And so, but all of the players that stepped in and played, unbelievable. John Erline, who was our backup center, he stepped in and did a fabulous job for us. Running back-wise, we ended up having to move a wide receiver to running back by the time we got through the playoffs. And then the quarterbacks, we always tell the quarterbacks, who's the next man up. Hopefully we're not going to lose a game because we got bad play at that position.
And you've had a couple of young men step up, and well, before we go on to that, I'd like to follow up on Taylor Anderson because he had a terrific baseball career at Westlake as well as a football career. And talking with J.T. Blair, looks like Anderson may be undersized in the minds of a lot of scouts, is not afraid of a challenge based on what I recall about his college plans.
No, he's, from a football standpoint, he could have gone to play college football at several Division II schools. Those were the people that were interested in him. He had several Division II offers. He chose not to. Pretty much he decided his football career was done, and I told him, I said, son, I respect that. You've been nothing but a warrior for us. What a great player's been. But, he's going to go to Texas A&M unless something happens in baseball, for him before then.
But now looking ahead, you had Kirkland Michaud and Drew Willoughby, who have already seen some snaps for you. How's that competition going?
It's going great. Actually, we've got a third one that's in the mix now.
Why am I not surprised?
Cade Klubnik. Kirkland was not able to participate in spring ball because our baseball team made such a nice run.
That's generally a good problem.
That's a good problem, but Drew had a fabulous spring. Young Klubnik, who will be a sophomore, had a really good spring. We let them get banged around, and we don't put the off-colored jersey on them or anything. They're live, and they need to be. So we'll take it into fall practice with the 3, and I hope my goal is by week 3, one of them will have emerged, But I'm going to take it into the early part of the season as far as a quarterback competition.
I have a couple of follow-ups on that. One, you mentioned you didn't put the special colored jersey on your quarterback. And when Todd Dodge tells me something unusual about quarterbacking and coaching quarterbacks, I'm very interested. What's the background of that? Because I can't remember the last time I heard of somebody approaching coaching their quarterbacks that way.
The thing that I tell our guys during the springtime, there's no way that I can evaluate you the way you need to be evaluated if you're not going to get hit. If you're sitting in the pocket and you know that they can only touch you, they can only tag off on you. There's no way that I'm going to prepare you for 6A football in the state of Texas. So when they're competing for the job, they're going to be live. They're going to be live all spring. They're going to be live in the fall. Then once we hit the season, obviously we're going to take care of them during practice. If they're a returning starter, like Taylor Anderson was, last year he had started, 15 games for us as a junior. Well, he doesn't have to get hit anymore. I know what he can do. But if you're a guy that hasn't played for us yet, I've got to be able to evaluate you with the bombs going off.
And the other thing is you speak very openly about the competition. You mentioned 2 candidates. There's a third one out there as well. It's easy to say there's competition at every position.
Yeah.
I sense that that's very real at Westlake, and it pays off when you get to those situations where the injuries and this guy may not be starting, but he's been competing.
Yes.
And that helped him be ready when it's live action, even in the playoffs.
Yeah. Well, I'll go back to 2016. Of course, Sam's coming off a Player of the Year in the state of Texas season in 15. We play Katy. We win against Katy at home. He tears cartilage in both knees. He's out 4 weeks. Long story short, he had 3 different injuries that year. There were about 3 or 4 week injuries. If you'd have told me that Sam Ellinger was only going to play in 5 of our games that year and we were going to go to the quarterfinals and win 11 games, I would have called you a liar. And we were able to do that because of the depth of our our quarterback room and the fact that these kids understand. Now that I could tell that story, 3 or 4 years down the road, our kids understand about you're a play away, whether or not you're the bona fide number 2 or you're in a competition. That's the one thing that we try to do at our place is build depth at that position.
If I'm recalling correctly, I remember a conversation reported in the newspaper that you had with Sam Ellinger after he graduated and was going through a bit of a rough patch, and it brought home for me what is true for you and is true for about any coach in any sport. These young men become your sons, and when they play that last game, when they cross the stage and pick up their diploma, in a very large sense, you are ready to be a part of their life and coach them and help them without whatever crisis happen and share their triumphs as well.
Well, we talk with them, as they go through their career, the playing the position of quarterback, really at any level, but definitely, at the highest level of high school football is in our state. It can be a very lonely place. It could be a rewarding place, but it can be a real lonely place, because we're so passionate about this sport in our state. Well, Sam, he found out a little bit about that as a freshman, and I'm going to be with him during the good times. Well, I'm also going to help him through the rough times too, and tell him how to, help him through those. And same way with Taylor Anderson. I miss Taylor already because he's been a part of my life where I see him every day, and now I don't see him as much, and so we talk on the phone a couple times a week. Chase Daniel, that's going into his 11th year in the NFL. I talk to Chase, as much as I can during the season. He called me on right before the Lions played the Bears, and he was going to start on Thanksgiving Day, and let me know that, it's not official yet, but I'm going to be starting on Thanksgiving. Just wanted you to know, and we just got, it's not a whole lot different than any other, position coach, but you have a lot of investment in these players, and you love them. That's when around our program we don't mind telling each other we love each other, and it's a family atmosphere.
And your son Riley's at South Lake Carroll.
Yep.
So, will there be a point when your teams meet on the gridiron and we can find out that you taught Riley everything he knows, but not everything you know?
Well, there's, since last year, it's been a little over a year that he's been there, and, a lot of people ask us about if we could play in the playoffs, and that's really not going to be possible during this 2-year window because he's more than likely no doubt going to go Division I in his league, and I'm going to go Division II out of our league because, we're the 6th smallest school in our district. But who knows? Down the road, there's the next realignment. You may see the Dragons and the Chaparrals playing each other in a non-district game.
All right, I think that would be an awesome spectacle. And if it worked out, you're in the same division. You're playing at Jerry World. I guess you're. Oh, you're pretty well ensconced in Region 4. I'm guessing for the time being. I don't. From what I've looked, I don't foresee you going back to Region 2. Or do you know something I don't?
No, I don't. And like Riley and I actually spent the morning together. We were asked this question earlier. What would we think if we met in a state championship game? And both of us said it would be awesome. We wouldn't blink one thing because if we played each other this coming year, the only way we could play each other would be in the state championship game because we would meet in the state championship game through the bracket. So that's the only chance. So it'd be a great thing if we did.
All right, Coach Dodge, thank you so much for joining us and helping us close out the convention. Always a pleasure to talk with you, and we'll look forward to seeing Coach Dodge down the road as he plays San Antonio schools in the postseason. Well, that wraps it up for us here in Houston at the Texas High School Coaches Association Convention. I'd like to thank Eric Enriquez for running the board for us, getting the video on, and performing minor technological miracles to make this happen. And on behalf of my colleagues Bobby Stotzenberger and Jay Riley, I'm Mark Kusenberger saying good afternoon, and we'll see you in late August.